you grow up with a NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Okay, it's time for another one of these episodes where we sort of gather everything that we weren't able to put onto the main show but want to get out to you as soon as possible. So this is sort of going to be filled with a mix of hardware, movies, and some television shows, and even a theatrical screener. So it's sort of an eclectic mix of everything. As far as moving forward, we wanted to get this out because we're approaching our Black Friday coverage that is going to come very soon, as well as getting our gift guide together for the beginning of December. As we're sort of ramping down for the year, we're going to for sure still have some coverage over the holiday 1 month or so break that we take, in that we won't necessarily have the main podcasts and shows, but we're going to have probably more TurdOrTreasures, or some review coverage here and there. So we wanted to make sure we got stuff out here for you for Black Friday, and so it's a mix of Blu-ray DVD releases that we're going to be talking about, some streaming hardware, some headphones, as well as some movies, and a currently streaming / theatrical release from a Chinese animation company, which is interesting. So without further ado, let's get into the reviews, and I'll come back at the end and sort of tell you what's going on later on in this week.
Basically using geeks.
Leave me alone, geek boy.
Holy shit, you geeks are badass.
It's getting close to Black Friday, and you know what that means? Movie sales. So Birdman and I had a chance to check out 3 releases that came out over the last little while from Warner Brothers. Blinded by the Light, The Kitchen, and Shaft. And there's been plenty said. They're recent movies, so you know whether or not they're good or not. I liked The Kitchen more than some of the reviews online did. It was sort of middling. I thought it was entertaining enough. It's the kind of thing my mom would like. Blinded by the Light is just an inspiring, nice story, if you're looking for a feel-good movie. And Shaft was everything I wanted a sequel to be after seeing, not the first Shaft, but the first Shaft with Samuel L. Jackson went back when I was in high school. It was the funny, weird, self-referential sort of humor that I wanted to see in Shaft, and it was probably one of my favorite movies of the year. Sort of an underground sleeper. It didn't do as well in theaters as it should have, and it's much better hopefully on home release when it comes to fan reaction or viewer reaction to it. Now, all these releases are worth it at retail price, but these are the kind of ones that if you look at some of the ads out there for early ads for Black Friday, these are ones that are going to be discounted. They're going to be the ones that you can get for stocking stuffers, and you can't really go wrong. There's going to be something between these 3 for pretty much anybody that you have in your family. If you're on the fence, the only one I would say to avoid would be The Kitchen, because it was very divisive between viewers and critics. So you might want to do a little research on that one first, because it's not the best crime story I've ever seen, and it's honestly not worth full retail. It's going to be one that if you get it on a heavy discount in one of the bins for Black Friday, then it might be something to pick up for a family member, or if you'd like any of the actors or actresses in it. Other than that, The other two, Blinded by the Light is one of those inspirational feel-good movies, certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. And Shaft, while not being as hugely critically acclaimed, it was one of my top 10 movies of the year for sure. It was just one of my favorites. So if you know my sense of taste and Birdman's sense of taste, and you're similar, you don't have to worry about it. You're going to have a good time with Shaft. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Is these are the kind of movies that you might want to check out, and you're going to probably see in those bins as incentives to go into the store. And don't be afraid to pick up Shaft or Blinded by the Light for sure, and The Kitchen if you're a fan of the actors. This is just going to be a quick addendum to the review coverage we did on the new Roku line for 2019. We finally got a copy of the Streaming Stick Plus, which is their premiere release this year, and adds the better antenna and more support for the 5G band on Wi-Fi. It is a different form factor than the others in that it is an actual stick. It also has an antenna built into the power cable to it, and it separates it from it, giving a little less interference, giving it longer range and stronger signal quality. And I'm happy to say that the Wi-Fi range is significantly better. I'm able to get a much stronger signal even on the 2G in my room, and the 5G is much faster than the previous network as well. So what that means is I'm getting a much stronger 4K signal, and if you were playing stuff in 4K, especially with HDR, I would highly recommend getting this device. It's only $20 or so more, depending on where you buy it, than the lower level ones. And I'm having a pretty good time with it. I'd say it's the best one if you want the best 4K signal, especially since it has the better Wi-Fi adapter built in. And this, I can confirm as well, does not allow for OTG, so you can't get a wired connection in. So this, if you're in a troublesome Wi-Fi area, is the device you want. If you're looking for something to give you the best experience you can get on Roku currently, the Streaming Stick Plus is the way to go for Christmas. Our friends at Skullcandy decided to send over their newest headphones, which are the Method ANC noise-canceling wireless earbuds. So these are not like those earbuds where they're completely wireless, where there's two separate earbuds that are connected to each other. We've reviewed some of those before, and they're pretty good. These are the traditional wireless earbuds that have sort of the one band that goes between them that you can either put behind your neck or in front of your neck, that then have the volume inline controls and everything right on the left-hand side's cable. And the advantage to that is when they pair, it pairs as a set, and you don't have to worry about one ear pairing to the other, and individual batteries or anything like that. So it allows the overall size of the pieces that go into your ear to be a little smaller. So, it's all up to personal preference that way. I ended up liking it. These are the first that I've had a chance to look at that are active noise canceling, hence the name Method ANC. So active noise canceling means that it will put out a frequency hum that blocks as much outside noise as you possibly can have while still being inaudible to the regular listening ear, allowing you to listen to whatever content you're playing through the device. Now, these are pretty subtle. It turns on by default when you turn them on to have the noise cancellation. I noticed it muffled a fair amount of sound outside, but it wasn't going to be something like full-size headphones over the ear would do, because they would consume a lot more power and also cover your entire ear. But it was noticeable compared to other earbuds that I have that it blocked a fair amount of outside noise. So it's doing its job, and it advertises 6 hours of battery per play and then a rapid charge. It allows for quick charging. Now, I got about 5 hours and 55 or 5 hours and 56 minutes. I've done it 2 or 3 times, charging it completely and letting it drain completely. And that's pretty darn close to the advertised amount, which, we're talking within 3 to 4 minutes of the advertisement, which is pretty darn good. So they are living up to that charging capacity. And for the most part, you're not listening for 6 hours straight unless you're on the go. And if that's the case, usually, you have a battery charger or something to charge them up with you. So these aren't going to go completely all day. But you aren't usually using wireless headphones for 6 hours completely straight. So I would say it's good enough for you to do a commute to work or school and back multiple times, 2 or 3 times a week before you have to charge it, which is pretty good. They charge using a regular micro USB, so it's no fancy connector, nothing weird there. Just pretty much anything you use to charge, like even I used my PlayStation 4 controller charge cable to charge them. It worked perfectly fine. These are also IPX4. What does that mean? That they're rated for sweat and water resistant. Doesn't mean you can submerge them, but if you're wearing them while you're running, or if it's raining out a little bit and it gets a little water on them, they're going to be resistant. They're not going to necessarily break on you. They're rated for that sort of use. Just, again, do not submerge them. Don't let them go for a drink. Don't take them in the bath with you, and you should be fine. They have a few different gel inserts that will fit your ear. Some people's ear canals are different sizes, so it's nice that they include them. But what they also include are those little tabs that work to hold them in better by going into the top part of your ear. And it sort of shapes in and just allows them to stick around. I would put them in and I was shaking my head violently as much as I could without getting dizzy. And I found that they stayed in perfectly fine. And it was pretty good getting a nice seal, because you want for noise cancellation to get a decent seal in your ear. And it was pretty good. I never really had to adjust them that much, but I don't usually have too much trouble with earbuds, whereas I have other family members that don't care for them because they have weird shaped ear canals. So it is good that they include a few different sizes so you can mix and match and find the best one that fits you. Now, they are also magnetic, meaning the backs of them will snap together and hold together and sort of keep clean. So it makes it so it's less, it's less likely to snag and get caught on things and sort of hold them together. It's just better that way. Now, there isn't like a fancy carrying case or anything with this. It's pretty straightforward. Now, in their price range, I would say they're not bargain basement. They're not super premium expensive. They're right in the price range of where you could get it as like a Christmas gift for somebody, or a birthday gift, or even something for yourself, where you're not breaking the bank to get them. Prices will vary, so I'll put a link up in our description below so you can check them out to see what they're currently going for where you are. The box and packaging is pretty straightforward. It does have a sort of a flip open front that just sort of shows what they look like and gives a bit of a description of them. Skullcandies have always been, of the name brands out there, one of the better values for the price, and this is no exception because it has consistent Bluetooth strength. I didn't hear it ever disconnect while I was playing around with it. I've used it on my iPod Touch as well as my Pixel phone, and rummaging around in my pockets never affected it one bit. These are not like audiophile quality in that they do not connect using aptX technology or any of the other higher end ones. It's strictly Bluetooth, but it is a very strong signal, and I found the quality to be quite good, a lot better than previous Bluetooth generations have been. So it means you're going to have a better range with these, probably stronger signal than some of those higher bandwidth required ones. But it's just, I would say, a good all-round entry-level wireless earbuds, especially for the fact that it has active noise cancellation built in. So it's pretty good value for what you're paying. So I'm going to recommend it. We'll probably talk about this in our gift guide when that comes up in the next few weeks, because it's going to make for a decent gift for somebody who wants to go for long walks but doesn't want the outside noise coming in, or if you're working from home or working in an office and you're allowed to use headphones and you want to sort of cut out the extra sensory stuff that's happening all around you. It's probably a good idea to have something like this.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Star Trek Discovery Season 2 was a vast improvement, at least in my eyes, over the first season, where I grew to like the first season and respect it, but I had some serious issues with it. It actually divided my friendships up with you were either somebody who was an old Trekkie that absolutely hated it, or you were somebody that was fairly new to Trek or liked the progressive social changes it made to the show. I was sort of somewhere in between. I tried to let the show run on its own merit. There were issues I had with some of the cast, especially the main character of Michael Burnham. I was not a fan of how that character was written. It wasn't the actress's fault, but it seemed like it was overly melodramatic. They've toned that down a fair bit in the second season by choosing to focus a lot more on the Enterprise and Christopher Pike. And putting Anson Mount in as Christopher Pike was one of the most brilliant casting choices ever. It's probably his best role now. Like I liked him a lot in Hell on Wheels, but this is where he really shines. They did a lot to sort of course correct some of the issues that people had in the first season, and I won't spoil that for anybody that hasn't seen it, but if you've not had a chance to check it out either on Space, I think it's called CTV Sci-Fi now, the Canadian channel, or on CBS All Access, or in Crave TV in Canada, then this is going to be where you want to pick it up, because the visual quality was really good for the second season, especially for a streaming show, but some of the space special effects and events that happen in the show really let themselves shine through on Blu-ray, because you've got 10 or 15 times the data rate that you can watch, a lot more details. It looks spotless, and they've even taken some time, from what I can see, because I did some comparisons to the episodes that are streaming, and it seems like some of the models are just better rendered. And I know that's become a practice on a lot of theatrical movies, but it's like they take a little extra time to re-render it or render some more detail when it comes to the home video release. So it's actually slightly better quality than what you would have seen if you had already watched it. So included are all 14 episodes, as well as a couple of the short treks and some behind-the-scenes featurettes. The featurettes, while entertaining, don't give as much in-depth insight or honestly as much merit as the previous ones that have been out on the Blu-ray sets for Enterprise, the original series, or the Next Generation. But that's just because those have had so much more time to develop and be in the public conscious, so they've had more interviews and more special features made for them. The features here are welcome, and I'm glad to see that they are here, and that some of the short treks are here. I wish there were more short treks and they had the rest of them, but it's good enough as is for now, and they did a pretty good job of preserving the feel for some of the other previous releases, like last season's one. Nothing over and above. There's not like this is a steelbook. This is a standard release that has a slipcover that has a flip open front tab, but the packaging is nice. It's sturdy compared to some other Blu-ray releases that I've had where the discs are loose. These are held firmly, but yet they release very easily with a tab in the center. You're not going to worry about these falling around. It's a nice sturdy case that isn't going to break. The episodes are spread across 4 discs, which gives them plenty of room to breathe, considering that these episodes vary in length, but they're never overstaying their welcome when it comes to video quality or data size. So it's a good mix. It would have been nice if there was an extra disc included with maybe some more features or all the short treks, but beggars can't be choosers, and this is a pretty good solid release overall. If you're a Trek fan, it's a no-brainer. You're going to want to pick this up either for Christmas or just for yourself. But if you're somebody who was on the fence, you don't necessarily, say you didn't like the first season, you don't necessarily have to have seen the first season. They'll summarize it in here. And if you were sort of adverse to the direction the first season went, this is a dramatically different season. And to me, the first season was a 6 out of 10 at best. It was a visual marvel, but it was about a 6 out of 10. This is an 8 or a 9. I was very, very impressed with it. They were able to course correct a lot of issues I had with the tone of the first season, and where this leads at the end of the season, it opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. Who knows where they're going to go? The short treks are currently airing now, and we're talking about them on Future Imperfect as they air. So our podcast Future Imperfect will go sort of in depth into each of the episodes, as we will do on the following third season when that eventually premieres, and Picard. So right now, as a stopgap before new programming begins, this is a really good set, and one that any sci-fi fan should pick up. Recently, we received a box with a few titles from Mill Creek that are going to be pretty decent holiday gifts in 2 different categories. We've got the TV box set of King of Queens. It's the complete series. It's in one of Mill Creek's new designed thick cardboard boxes where everything's on these slip cards. I've not been a super huge fan of it in the past, but it is a way of putting a lot of compact discs together without stacking them all up on top of each other, which traditionally had been the cheap way to go with a lot of Sony releases. And those just ended up scratching themselves up. But what you get here is all 207 episodes from all 9 seasons on 22 DVDs, which sounds like a lot, except originally this would have come on a lot more if you had bought them individually. And I can confirm that they haven't lost really any quality at all by taking the original releases and putting more episodes per disc because they've jam-packed it completely full. Now, on the box, it does advertise that it's widescreen, and my fear was, some of the earlier seasons are not actually in widescreen. So are they going to crop it or do something, that would ruin it? No. The earlier seasons that were filmed in full screen are presented in full screen, and then the later seasons are presented in anamorphic widescreen, which is perfect. You wouldn't want to have them, crop it or change anything. This isn't a show where the whole thing was filmed in widescreen and then, cropped or changed for television. So this is the original aspect ratio for each episode, which is really appreciated. So that's great. And the earlier seasons are in Dolby Stereo, and the later ones would have surround where available. So as we went into the HD era, because this is a show that started in the 90s and then went all its way out until the mid-2000s. So that's when everything converted over to surround sound. So it is representative of the original broadcast. They're not cut as far as I can tell. They're in their original length, as well as, there's no time compression for credits or anything. So this is the best way to get this show. Now, if you're looking for, something, miraculous with special features and everything, there isn't any special features added. This is just the show, bare bones, but the price makes it worth it. Has an MSRP of $75 US. That, whenever somebody has an MSRP, it's usually cheaper than that when you buy it direct from like Amazon or Walmart, or even, from themselves. I'm going to put a link in the description for both of these releases here. Now, is it worth it? It's all going to depend on whether or not you were a big fan of the show. When I was growing up, this was one of those shows like that 70s show that was sort of perennial. It was always on in our household. We would watch bits and pieces, but I had never taken a chance to actually watch through all of it. So what I have done here is I purposely picked out a bunch of episodes that I had seen, a bunch of episodes I had not seen from each season, and basically spent an entire afternoon jumping around and watching them. And I can, happy to say that there's a consistent quality throughout. So, so the jokes a lot of times do hold up because it was very, well put together show and cast. It is sort of an object of its time, obviously, but for those of us that grew up with it, it's a pretty fun show, and it's going to be worth adding to your collection. And as a Christmas gift, you're looking at under $100 for 207 episodes is a pretty good deal. Now, anything else to note with it? Nothing in particular. It's just happy to see that I believe for the first time this is the complete uncut show, non-syndicated versions, broadcast versions. So we're not looking at any music issues or any cuts that were made to add extra commercials back when it went into syndication. So for a lot of us, if we only saw them in reruns, we might not have even seen the full episode. So that's pretty cool with this. Now, the other release is more of a stocking stuffer, or maybe even get it before Christmas and watch it with your family as part of your family Christmas tradition. And that's Santa with Muscles, the Hulk Hogan movie, which I believe was the last movie of his that went theatrical at the time during his brief stint as a leading actor in Hollywood. Now, it is a bare bones release on Blu-ray from Mill Creek, but it's got a digital copy for their Movie Spree service, which has a full 1080p copy, so that's pretty cool. Now, it's notable as well for not only just having Hulk Hogan and Clint Howard in there, but also Mila Kunis, and I'm drawing a blank on the guy who played Donna's dad. But Donna's dad in that 70s show, it's sort of where she was discovered to, get into that show. So it's neat to see a really young Mila Kunis as well as, some other familiar faces. Does it hold up as a great cinematic movie? It never was, but it's one of those fun, ridiculous Christmas movies you can throw on. And they made use of the disc, so it is a single layer disc, but it's completely full, so the visual quality is a mile better than it would have been on DVD or VHS or television in the past. So it has an MSRP of $10 to $15. You're going to be looking at probably $7 to $10, especially if you end up picking this up on like Black Friday at Walmart or somewhere like that. So it's a good stocking stuffer, especially if you're a wrestling fan or if you're a fan of the cheesy 80s and 90s family Christmas movies. This is one to watch out for.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
Mill Creek is moving right along with their next two releases in the Ultraman series that they picked up. We have Ultraman Geed and Ultraman Orb, both of which are on Blu-ray, contain movies, because how they do a lot of these tokusatsu shows now is you have a season, and then at the end of the season, or before, somewhere in between, there will be a television movie event. And luckily they've included all that, so basically the shows are spread over multiple discs, and then the final disc in each set, there's 25 episodes in each season, and at the very end, the last disc is the movie. Now, there isn't an English dub track. Wasn't expecting that, but there is a really good translated subtitle track, and the video is flawless. Like, I've seen bits and pieces of these shows on streaming before, and even using the best streaming technology out there, it's not the same quality as these Blu-rays. These are full, dual layer 50 gigabyte discs that have all of the data taken up with the episodes. Now, it's kind of hard to explain Ultraman. It's similar to Power Rangers or the Super Sentai series, where each season is its own contained universe. Sometimes you might have a crossover or two for special events, but the idea is always the same. Somebody receives the power of Ultraman that can then transform into Ultraman, or some form of Ultraman showing up and fights people in giant suits that try to take over the world or destroy the universe, sort of deal. So, and somehow every single year they end up doing a good job of making each show unique looking and feel different. So with Orb and Geed, they're of the more modern series. The last releases they had put out were the first two seasons from the 60s. Well, now we're looking into the modern 2000s era plus. So you get a booklet with each that gives an episode description. There is a slipcover cardboard one. Now, my set of Geed did come, like, everything came very well packed when I had it shipped to me. But Geed had a couple loose discs, and the case has a little crack in it. It seems to me that the case seemed a little flimsy. Maybe it was just the product materials were a little loose and it was prone to break. But there was nothing wrong with the cardboard or anything else. There was no bending. There was no... it didn't have any distress on the packaging before I opened it. So that's one thing you might have to look out for when you buy it. I've seen it happen with not just Mill Creek releases, but other companies when they put multi-disc sets out. Sometimes these cases can crack in shipping. But that's not really due to a fault of the manufacturer at all, because the other set was perfectly fine when I opened it up. The only thing is the disc platters are a little shallow, so the discs don't really snap into place super tight. So you're not going to want to be throwing these cases around. You're going to want to keep them more on a shelf. You can always get a new Amaray case for like $1 if you really wanted to, and pop it in yourself. But as long as you're treating them nice and putting them on your shelf, you should be perfectly fine. Both of these sets come with digital copies that connect to the Movie Spree website that Mill Creek owns. And they stream, I believe, when I was looking at 540p and 720p for some episodes in the movies. Very respectable. About the same quality as I had seen streaming of it before from the original Japan releases. So overall, pretty good quality. The audio is nice and easy to make out. The subtitles are bold and easy to read. Nothing moves too fast that you can't understand what's happening. It's just fun. People in suits beating up other suits, sci-fi action. The best of the kind of shows you can get from Japan. I'm pretty impressed with both releases. The quality of the special effects and everything has gone up so much since the 1960s, obviously, that these are worth checking out. And, they have an MSRP. They're retailing for about $40 US, which makes it about 55 Canadian. You might find it a little cheaper. You're going to find them on their official website, as well as Amazon and Walmart, places like that. So, give them a chance. If you were hesitant about starting with the original series that we had talked about before, because maybe you're thinking it's too old or something, those were great releases too. But these might be more your style, that they're newer. Just give them a watch, and there's less episodes to absorb, 25 per series, plus the movies for each. So they may be a good starting point. And if you're a big superhero / tokusatsu fan like myself, these make perfect Christmas presents. Earlier this month, GKids gave us the opportunity to check out Whitesnake early. Whitesnake is the Chinese 3D animated film from the studio that has worked in the past with DreamWorks, doing Kung Fu Panda 3 extra animation, as well as putting together some of their own projects in recent years. They're sort of a flagship 3D animation studio now in China. So this was their first big budget release that's getting a theatrical release worldwide. And when we had the chance to check it out, we got the option to watch press screener copies, both in the original subtitled version, which was the traditional Chinese version with English subtitles, and a brand new dub created for the Western audience. So sort of to divide up our time between them, we had an extra option to watch it in two versions. So I watched the English dubbed version, and we had our friend Ken Reels check out the original sub version for because he's sort of our resident anime expert for his show This Anime podcast. Now he put together some notes for me so I could sort of give his thoughts on what he saw in that version, and then I'll sort of compare them with what I thought of it myself. So he gave me some notes here, and the first thing he said is that subtitles display the dub name changes. So basically it'll sort of show off that some of the names are different because they've westernized a little bit of the story for our releases here. So that's good to see that it's not just a straight translation, because sometimes that doesn't work right. So that the fact that they used something to make it a little easier for us to understand is great. They use the dub script for the subtitles, so it's not a separate translation. It's like, so they translated it one time and are using that script for both the dub and the sub, which is good. At least that way they know that they're not delivering two different messages in the film. So there's some wooden feeling performances, he said, at least from the Chinese version, that he could feel and see on the screen. That does improve a little bit at the end. Most of the supporting players are all bringing great performances, but the main characters aren't as interesting to him, at least that he saw. Now, that actually sort of mirrors what I thought of the film myself. There are parts of this movie that have really, really good animation, and before I get to that, as far as the plot goes, it's based on a traditional folklore tale, and I'm always interested in seeing those. So that I'll say this right off the bat: it is worth watching the movie, especially if you're somebody who's new to the story itself. It's basically a bunch of snake demons are at war with the humans, and they want to use their power, and blah blah blah. I don't want to go into details of the entire plot to spoil it, but it's an interesting story that I've not seen before, so I'll say that. Now, getting back to the animation, there are some parts of this that are some of the best 3D animation I've seen from anybody outside of U.S. studios. And traditionally, Asian studios have struggled with 3D animation, especially even like Japanese studios doing anime. So I had low expectations for this because China's been, to be honest, probably 20 to 30 years behind when it comes to 3D animation looking good, realistic, and not like cheap knockoff stuff. This was full-on DreamWorks quality for some scenes, which is no surprise, seeing as they were started originally as a DreamWorks company doing extra animation for them, so they sort of have that know-how. But there are certain scenes in the film where the animation quality drops dramatically. Certain characters don't look as good. They look more cartoony or like they took a few different designs and put them all into the same film, and it doesn't have a cohesive vision. And it doesn't appear that was like a point to do. It's just sort of they did it. It's just the main characters and all the backgrounds are fantastic and could fit anywhere, even in like a Pixar film. But a lot of the side supporting characters are done in a lower quality, and it's sort of jarring when they're on the screen at the same time as everybody else. There are some choices that I wouldn't have made if it was my film. And then there's even a moment in the film that has a look where it dramatically changes to almost feel like the Into the Spider-Verse claymation style, but it also doesn't appear that was a stylistic choice. It just looks like they ran out of money near the end of the film and sort of threw a scene in that should have taken more time to render. So it was a little uneven when it came to the animation quality. Some stuff is like 9 out of 10 quality, and some of the stuff is like 4 out of 10. So it was sort of odd. It took me out of the experience a little bit, but overall it was still interesting to watch. The English performances in the dub were adequate, nothing spectacular. There's still a lot that the Chinese films have to learn from when it comes to creating emotive faces and actions and the pacing of the film. Everything seemed to happen very, very quickly. It almost feels like the film should have been 20 or 30 minutes longer to sort of take time to build up a connection with the characters. But if you're a little kid watching it, you're going to be fine. Like it's entertaining. It just seems that the plot moves a little fast for my take. It's probably a story that could have gone on for another half hour. Final thoughts. Overall, it's worth watching. I wouldn't say in its current state that it's a must to go out and buy, but if it's playing in the theater near you and you're interested in 3D animation and the dub is good enough that kids will understand it and it's not offensive and you'll have a pretty good time in theaters. I think this studio and the film is something to watch out for when it hits video. Kudos to GKids because they're bringing a lot of cinema that we wouldn't normally see in theaters here, actually here in English. So I'd say give it a watch. If it's playing in a local theater near you, it's worth picking up a ticket to see.
Those magnificent bastards.
Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
Okay, and we're back to finish off this episode. Now, what are we doing later on this week as we approach Black Friday? We are going to have another syndicated episode or two of some of our shows come out. We're just waiting on some of our partners to release stuff, and then we can sort of throw it up there. This week and over the next several weeks, Birdman and I recorded some shows with Steve over at the GCRN. So we're going to have some Ultra Geek episodes that we're going to be on, as well as some Future Imperfect. So we're going to be discussing at some point a lot of franchises like the Terminator franchise, as well as the Mandalorian and the the Disney streaming service, as well as some talk on the new short trek that has been released. So that'll be pretty cool. We've got Birdman and I are having the regular show come out. I know he's got some coverage he wants to talk about. He's got a whole bunch of books that he received from, I think it was DK Publishing, he's going to be talking about. I have a few things in the mail. I'll be talking about the new NVIDIA Shield TV, the new little stick version that's coming out. I am also going to be talking about a new pair of headset or two, just waiting for them to arrive in the mail. Now that winter has officially come super early, it's taking a little bit longer to get some things. So that's currently on our plate. As far as gaming goes, we will not be having a review of the Pokemon titles, as far as I know, currently, because we'll probably be getting them for ourselves. We might give our thoughts on them, but we did not receive a review copy of them, and we're trying to catch up on all the other ones that we have to talk about. So there won't be any of that right now. I do know that Birdman says he wants to talk about Star Wars, the game, because I know he's getting it, I believe, today as of this recording. So he's going to be talking about that eventually. And, we start to ramp down releases when it comes to December, when that approaches. So we're getting as much of the coverage out as we can right now, because we want to have you make informed decisions when it comes to your Black Friday and Christmas spending. So that's going to be it for this week's recording. As far as next week comes, we do have some more planned content. We are trying to get some more commentaries recorded, so you might be seeing them pop up sort of randomly a little later, but we're going to have stuff from Nerd to the Third, as well as our syndicated stuff from Altered Geek and Future Imperfect. And we want to get a prototype recorded, which is sort of a Black Friday prototype, as well as we're going to have an end-of-year prototype recording fairly soon, because Come December, there's very few releases, so we're going to have that sort of settled and ready to go. And then over the course, at least currently, the plan is over the course of our Christmas break to release sort of year best ofs. As far as like what do we think of, this past year in gaming, this past year in movies, this past year in television, this past year in geek news, that sort of deal. And we're going to talk about what was 2019 like, and what can we be looking forward to in 2020, the future. So that's going to do it for this show. I will be back on something else this week.
Okay, son, now you're starting to scare the viewers.
Just act normal.
I'd ask you to do the same, but I'm afraid that ship has sailed.
Why are there so many ostriches?
But you have a game that is dipped in
ropey, thick window cocking.
So guys, we'll be right back right here on This Week in Geek, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net and many other sites where I syndicate this crap, because I'm a media slut.
I like turtles.
Loose like your mom.
That's right.
No fisting, you say. Anything else you object to?
Me lucky tater tots.
You've been listening to This Week in Geek. Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net for more geek content, and subscribe to our podcast through iTunes or any podcatcher. If you'd like to comment on this episode, head to this episode post on ThisWeekInGeek.net and comment through Facebook Connect. Or you can call our voicemail line at 817-717-7202. Follow and message us on Twitter at ThisWeekInGeek. And check out our Instagram at twig_official_podcast. And if you're the good old-fashioned email type, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. We'll see you next time. And remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
I can't tell you how free I feel now that I've started identifying as a woman. Now that I can compete as female, I'm ready to smash the other girls.